Good evening. This is Jack from Charging the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Sunday, the 7th of December. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts, and I'm not here to issue trading signals. This is a video for paying subscribers at CTM The Bigger Picture.substack.com, and it's published on YouTube after a delay of a week. All right, let's have a look at ES. Now, ES, after the initial spike up, we spent last week basically crawling up and down with a very, very spiky setup here. I don't really have any patterns here. I've got kind of patterns on RTY and YM, but I've got really nothing on ES and NQ, which will generally mean that they're going to go higher. So, and we haven't retested the all-time highs yet on any of them, I don't think, although I think we came very, very close on IWM. So I'm looking higher. One thing to mention in terms of the stats for this week on equities, I've got a bullish leaning day on Monday, and the rest of the week leans pretty neutral. The next significantly leaning is a bearish leaning day on Wednesday the 17th, and a bullish leaning day on Friday the 19th, which of course is just before Christmas. All right, let's have a look at the others. All right, looking at NQ, we've got a weak 6-minute sell signal fixed, hasn't reached the possible near miss target yet. You can see we've been doing this spiky sideways to up thing as well here. On RTY, I've actually got a decent looking pattern on IWM, which is broken down slightly. It's not, in my view, enough. I'd need to see them on more, although we do actually have one on YM, but nothing as impressive, really, actually, on the diet chart. Looking at DAX, DAX actually, after an initial start where I was wondering whether we were going to see a deep retrace, we've seen a move up, and that's got it well over the monthly pivot and also the daily middle band, and ESDX is wending its way back to the prior high as well. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Right, looking at SPX, we've got on ES, we did have a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing, but we went up enough that divergence has been lost. It hasn't been lost on SPX yet, but it's pretty close. So no, actually it has been lost. I marked it in, I measured it. All right, that kind of fits, because I did say when we were down here that if we got up far enough and the head and shoulder patterns failed, which they all did, then I'd be leaning towards seeing retest the highs. I'm still leaning towards seeing retest the highs. I was thinking that we might see a deeper retrace before that happened. There's not much sign of that happening. In terms of the hourly chart, you can see this sort of, trending sideways to up as well, getting pretty close to a retest of the all-time high. We came within 25 handles of it the other day. Not a great deal to suggest that we're not going to see that, although we still have got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the hourly chart. All right, looking at the Qs. We didn't have any negative divergence here on the RSI 5 really at any point. We aren't in any particular danger of getting any at the moment, and again, I'm looking for a retest of the all-time high. On the hourly chart, RSI 14 sell signal fixed, hasn't failed yet, but I'm wondering if it's going to. In terms of the 15-minute chart, not a lot to see. RSI 14 sell signal fixed. All right, looking at Dia. Dia, we do have. Sorry, for some reason I haven't marked it in here. Oh, it is marked in there. Right, I don't know why that wasn't showing. Okay, we've got a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing on the daily, and I think we've got one on the IWM chart too. On the hourly chart, RSI 14 sell signal fixed. There is definitely some negative divergence here that could be played out, and maybe that we're going to see more of a retracement than we have seen so far. It would just, to make these make target, it would really need a little more than we saw last week in terms of retracements. We will see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at the IWM chart, and on the daily charts, we've got possible. It's funny, for some reason it wasn't showing that. Okay, we've got a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing on the IWM chart. We came very, very close to a retest of the high. We actually got up to 252.66 versus 252.77, so 0.11 of a 0.11 of a handle below. I'm expecting to reach that fairly soon. In terms of a pattern, there's an okay-ish looking rising wedge here. Not really an awful lot to see, and not a lot to hang your hat on in terms of any sign of retracement, which I'm not really thinking seems particularly likely here. We will see how that goes. I've drawn in the wedge here. I'm sorry, this is obviously a previous version I hadn't updated. But I've drawn in the wedge here. There is a wedge here. It's pretty good, and we are breaking down from it. But in all honesty, it's not enough to see it on IWM and not on the others. All right, DAX, I was a bit concerned we might see a breakdown here when this was failing to break back over the daily middle band. That is a memory. It's back over the 50 DMA as well. We haven't actually failed the head and shoulders here because we won't do that until we get over 24.4K, but I think at this stage I'm thinking it's probably going to fail. Nikkei, we were forming a head and shoulders there, and again, when we were failing at the daily middle band, I was a bit concerned that we might see a deeper retracement, but we're back over the daily middle band now, and we're probably going to see a retest of the high here at 52.6. All right, great. Let's have a look at the dollar chart. Now, dollar, we've got a double top which is broken down here with a target in the 97.37 to 97.47 area. Now, at this stage, we are pulling back a bit, rallying a bit. So that's not unusual, and that's not bullish. But obviously, there is a possibility this could fail back up into the high, but there's not a lot to suggest that that's happening so far. In terms of the Right, in terms of the others, I've got a nice looking bear flag here on Euro, which is suggesting that we might see a rejection back up to the highs on the dollar, while this rejects basically back to the lows. GBP, not a lot to say really. USD JPY, this does suggest that we might be looking at a move up on the dollar, as this looks an awful lot like a bull flag. So I'm thinking we might see that rejection back up into the high. Not quite sure what's happening on CAD here, but this is when you see USD CAD go down, it's actually the dollar being weak, not the Canadian dollar. So this was actually Canadian dollar rising fairly steeply against the dollar last week. Not a lot to say about Australia and Australian dollar and NZ, but neither of these particularly important in terms of the dollar. We have reached the first target on NZ. And may not necessarily get further. Obviously, if we do see a big rally on the dollar, I'd expect these to go down. All right, let's have a look at the US dollar. Right, on the monthly chart, we've still got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and on the weekly chart, we've still got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed. We do have an RSI 5 sell signal fixed now on the weekly, so that is a fit with a move up here and then a retracement and then potentially a move back up. This looks like, in terms of the signals, this looks like a pullback within an overall uptrend. In terms of the daily chart, no current divergence, but if we see, actually I think we might have a bit of divergence there, do we? Not quite. Needs to be a retest of the low, but if we do see that, we get a possible daily RSI 5 buy signal break. In terms of the patterns here, well, it's very clear. We've got the double bottom, which is breaking up with the target in the 104.10 to 15 area, and we've got a rising wedge here which is broken down, and a little double top which is breaking down as well. We could see this break down towards a retest of lows. Basically, we're in a big inflection point here. We're either going to head up to 104 or we're going to reject back to 96, and we are still in that inflection point, and the decision as to which way that's going to go is still being made. Now, there is a strong argument for up on US dollar. We've got this lovely bull flag, which is obviously hasn't broken up yet. We need to get back to 108 for it to break up, but nonetheless, it's a good setup. I've been watching it for months, and at the moment we're rallying at the lows. You've got a lovely double bottom, and that double bottom is trying to break up. USD has a matching bear flag, GBP USD has a matching bear flag, so there is a lot suggesting we could do that. USD JPY, a retest of this high here on at 162 would be a very obvious thing to do, even if we're going to fail just afterwards. Could we be forming an IHS here? Potentially, yes, but I think those shoulders are certainly the right shoulder would currently be rather undersized, and that would be a strike against it. In terms of USD CAD, we're trading a range here, and we have basically been trading a range for 10 years. The high is here in about the 1.47 area, 1.47 to 1.48, and the low is here in the 120 area. We can easily move around within that. This could be a double top, although it isn't a double top really. So a double top doesn't need another retest of the high, and certainly not one that holds. There's no such thing as a triple top. What we're looking at here is a potentially bullish triangle. We will see how that develops. If so, that would be a match with a possible test of the highs on US dollar. Whether we see that, who can say? So certainly in terms of how much confidence the US government is putting into the dollar here, not an awful lot. But nonetheless, it is the reserve currency, and an awful lot of people use it. But I do think it's fairly obvious the number of people are looking for ways to move away from it. And obviously we've got another three more years of Trump, and a lot more trouble could happen. One thing I would note particularly, and I'm going to be mentioning this more as we get close to the time, is that the Jerome Powell's term at the head of the Fed ends in May next year. And at the moment, can't remember, Trump's grinning idiot advisor looks like to be the front runner to be head of the Fed, and he will do whatever Trump wants him to do. This will be the first time we've actually had a non-independent head of the Fed, I think, since the 1970s. And honestly, that didn't go at all well. So I wouldn't expect it to go an awful lot better now. All right, let's have a look at bonds. So bear with me a second. All right, CB. CB, we had a double bottom here, and that broke up and it failed, and it went back to the lows, and it may well be failing lower. In terms of ZN, we've got a very nice looking potential double top here, and I'm wondering if we might start breaking down from that. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Okay, on TNX, TYX initially, we've got a potential IHS here which is breaking up. This basically could get us back up into the retest of this high here at 51.53. This looks like a bull flag. I'm thinking this would be a significant rise in what are, in practical terms, the 10-year yields and 30-year yields are in effect the borrowing rates. So in effect, this is a sizable rise in interest rates. Not as sizable as we'd be seeing, I suspect, if the dollar wasn't the reserve currency and very well entrenched as the reserve currency. I think America benefits quite a lot from that, and I think if that wasn't the case, I think interest rates would be an awful lot higher already. As it is, I think we may see, particularly as the Fed changeover happens, I think we may see a significant loss of confidence in the dollar, and that could well push yields up a lot. I had mentioned every so often that I've got possible IHSs forming here, and potentially that could take prices up a long, long way. All right, on the 10-year yields, TNX, we're now testing declining resistance. And I am wondering about an overall triangle forming here. Do we have a potential inverted head and shoulders here? Yes, we do. And that IHS is already breaking up, and actually it's pretty nice. And this is breaking up. It's broken up now with a target in about the 43.9 area. I think that has a very good shot at making target. We saw the breakup last week, and that's giving bonds a direction which it's been lacking a bit lately. In terms of TLT, we've got a nice rising megaphone here, and that has broken down. Do we have a head and shoulders there? Yeah, we do. And that head and shoulders is now broken down with a target in the 85.1 area. I think, again, that's got a pretty good chance of making target. Although it's got another support trend line to get through at about the 86.1 area. I think this has been coming for a while. I think we're going to see some retest the highs on yields. Bonds are going to take a bit of a battering. Don't know if that's going to be a longer term thing, but it could be. It is one of the things I've been warning about in my posts every so often. All right, let's have a look at oil. Okay, now oil, we've been seeing a bit of a rally here. Now, bigger picture, I think we're pretty close to the lows. I think we've been bouncing around about as low as it's likely to get unless there is a major shock. And shocks normally take us in the upward direction, which I think is probably more likely for where we're going over the next year or two. In terms of HO, we've got a double bottom here, which is starting to break up. That's got a target up here at about the 2.475 area, I think. Obviously, it needs to get through the monthly pivot at 2.4078 to get there. In terms of RBOB, we've got, I'm wondering if this is an overall bear flag forming, but if so, we may well do a high in the one at a retest of this high, or up into about the 1.89 area. Looking at NG, I was expecting this to go down. We had daily sell signals, but it's gone up, and I've got some things to say about that on the bigger picture. So let's have a look at that now. All right, let's do oil first. Okay, WTIC, we've got a potential double bottom here. Bigger picture on WTIC, on heating oil, on gas oil, we've got the same thing of the big falling wedge, which is broken up, and a bottoming pattern is forming. On WTIC, that bottoming pattern is a double bottom, although it would be improved if we actually made a full retest of 56.06. In terms of heating oil, this is an inverted head and shoulders, which is already broken up with a target in the 3.38 area approximately. That has been seeing a bit of a pullback, but it's some way short of failing. If it does fail, I'd be looking for a retest of the lows, and we may well find more support there and just form a larger double bottom. In terms of gas oil, we've got a potential double bottom here, and it's very nice. We were forming a nice bear flag here. We broke down, we retested the lows. This is very, very nice setup. Would it be improved even further by another retest of this low here at 1.709? Yes, I'm thinking we might see that. All right, looking at natural gas and the breakup we've got from this. This was a surprise to me because I had a very nice RSI 14 sell signal fixed here on the daily, and I've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed as well. The RSI 14 daily sell signal failed last week. The RSI 5 sell signal, if we see another week like last week, will fail as well. This is giving me pause, and I've been having a look at what I was expecting this basically to head down. I thought we'd be kicking around near the lows, and instead we've broken up. And this means that we're actually back on track for the original bullish scenario that broke up back here in about, that was in late 2024. And this broke up with a target in the 5.58 to 6.2 area. So, and I think looking at it, we're probably heading there. I think I was looking for a high really to be made and kept in the 4 to 4.5 area. Obviously, we've gone through that very significantly, and these targets are still valid and they're still open. I think chances are they're going to get made. In terms of negative divergence, we haven't got any. We could set some up on the weekly charts. As and when daily chart, we've been losing that when we came very close to losing both buy signals last week. I don't think either of them are going to survive, and I think we're likely going a bit higher. And I think the minimum target we're looking at is this arrow here, which I've got at about the 5.9 area. So we will see how that goes. All right, great. Let's have a look at gold. Right, gold. Gold, I think, is likely. We've made a higher high over this high here. I think we're just consolidating here, and then likely it goes higher. We're seeing quite a lot on the metals, which is suggesting higher. Silver, we had a double top here, and that broke down, and that failed back up into a retest of the highs. I think we're probably going to see more upside here, although technically there could be another double top set up here. On palladium, this looks like a bullish triangle. We've got a double bottom which is breaking up here with a minimum target and a retest this high here in about the 1705 area. And this looks like a triangle which would normally resolve upwards. So I'm leaning towards that resolving upwards and having a serious crack at getting towards this 1705 target. On platinum, again, we're heading higher. We're holding the monthly pivot as support. I'm leaning towards seeing a retest this high here at 1775. HG, this has been a lot stronger than I expected. I wasn't expecting this to go with the metals. I was thinking this would probably have more of a lean to the downside, but we haven't seen that so far. And my inclination is always to have a strong look and see whether or not I think it's going to go further, and I think it might. All right, looking at gold, looking at the bigger picture, obviously we're well beyond any trend lines here. No current negative divergence, and there won't be until we see a retest of the all-time high. In terms of the short term, this looks an awful lot like a triangle which is breaking up. That's got a minimum target and a retest of 4381.58. Okay, looking at silver. Silver, again, we had trend lines for a long time. We broke up from this pattern here, and then I was looking for a retest for high, and then I was thinking it might not stop, and it hasn't stopped. So where are we now? Well, I think potentially after a consolidation lasting many, many, many years. After this high in 2011, and which of course was a retest of the high, I think, which was in 1979. I think this one's off and running. We're looking pretty overbought, but I've seen this last for a long time on silver and bull moves before. In terms of the daily charts, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed. We could start setting up some negative divergence, but there really isn't a lot to suggest that we're going to see a big retracement here, and I'm not really expecting one. Looking at palladium, on a retest this high, we'll likely set up some decent looking negative divergence. Until then, well, we'll see how it goes. What do I think is happening on the bigger picture here? Well, I'm thinking we may well have been forming a right shoulder here, with left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Now, I would say the left and right shoulders are a little small, but nonetheless, I've seen ones like this play out, and this would be a pretty reasonable technical IHS here. So if this breaks up, this would have a target in about the 2500 area. Looking at platinum, we've already got an IHS which is broken up here. We've been consolidating after the breakup, and I'm thinking we may resume the path to this the IHS target, which is at 2290. Looking at the weekly chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, RSI 5 sell signal fixed, but they have not delivered a great deal so far, and they may well not. We've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the daily as well, but so far we could consolidate some more, but so far there's not a lot to suggest this is going to deliver much. All right, in terms of copper, I am starting to wonder about a retest this high here at 5.94. We have got monthly sell signals fixed, RSI 14, RSI 5, and generally speaking, these two tend to deliver. But at the moment, I'm surprised this has got up so high. No divergence on the weekly. On the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed and not close to an RSI 5, but I think we're getting into a range here where I'm starting to wonder about a retest this high here at 5.936. In terms of GDX, we've got almost made it back up to retest the high. I would say that when we get there, we'll have quite a lot of weekly negative divergence, and we're even closer on GDXJ. In terms of the short term, nothing really strongly suggesting these aren't going to make retest the highs, and I think they're the obvious next targets on both. All right, let's move on to the other commodities, and let's have a look at KC. All right, now coffee's been consolidating. It's kicking around the monthly pivot area 37780. We haven't got a decision which way it's going to go, and I think we need to wait for a decision as to which way it's going to go. I haven't really got a strong bias for this on the bigger picture charts. Looking at sugar, we've got possible bear flag forming here. I've got a double bottom which is broken up with the target in the 15.43 area, and I'm thinking we're probably going to make that target, but I'm thinking we may well head back and retest the lows afterwards. Looking at CC, we've got possible bear flag forming. 60-minute sell signal fixed and didn't quite fail last week, although it came very, very close. If we go up much higher, that's likely to fail. CT, forming a potential inverted head and shoulders here. Watching it with great interest. Not entirely sure where I would draw. I've drawn this as the most likely. Chest neckline is here, but there is another possible alternative across here, which I'll be watching, depending on where the right shoulder gets down to. In terms of lumber, nice looking potential double bottom, 60-minute buy signals reached possible near miss target. Looking at ZW, very nice looking potential double bottom. Corn looks like a consolidation. I've got to say, bigger picture, I'm leaning bullish on both wheat and corn. On soybeans, not so much, and the Chinese really haven't delivered anything in terms of what they were planning to buy, which was the reason it went up here. So if we're giving some of that back or all of it back, I wouldn't be that surprised. We've got a head and shoulders. It's broken down with a target in the 105.875 area. I'm not seeing any reason to think that won't make target. Looking at ZL, we've got reached this target here. We're consolidating. At the moment, we're holding the monthly pivot as support, and the buy signal has reached the possible near miss target. Looking at live cattle, we're continuing higher, watching this potential inverted head and shoulder neckline in about the 228.5 area. And lean hogs, I've got a potential double bottom here, which I'm watching, getting pretty close to double bottom resistance, which is in about the 83.6 area. So let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Right, coffee has got a decision to make here. I've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed here. We are kicking around the daily middle band, although staying slightly underneath at the moment. Waiting to see. We do have a very nice looking double top here. We could start playing that out, and on the bigger picture, I'm leaning towards that playing out because we are a long way from Kansas in terms of where coffee's been trading, and exactly the same applies to cocoa. Looking at sugar, I'm thinking this has potentially downside all the way down to retest this low here at 905. In terms of the weekly chart, no current divergence. Not a lot to say that we aren't going to go down here at the moment. We've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed here. We had an RSI 5 as well, but that's already made target. This could be a potential support trend line maybe, but at the moment, I'm not seeing an awful lot to suggest this won't continue down. Looking at cocoa, we've got potential double top that's broken down here. I have to say I'm seeing this more as a support break than as a double top breaking down, because the target is low enough that, well, I mean, the extended target's below zero. The main target's down at about the 1400 area, and while we're above, quite a long way above the previous range had been trading at for a long time, the 1400 area is right at the bottom of that range, and I'm skeptical about it getting that low. In terms of the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 buy signal fixed. We had an RSI 5 one that's made target already. I'm leaning towards this going a bit higher, so we shall see. On wheat, consolidating at the moment after we broke up from this double bottom. I think this is probably a bullish consolidation before we head up into the 576 to 580 area. Looking at corn, very nice looking overall double bottom here. Needs to show some more juice to the upside really to convince me that we're going to be breaking up from this. But in the short term, we do actually have some reason to think that we might see that upside, because here is a very nice looking inverted head and shoulders that is broken up with a target in the 495 area. Looking at soybeans, obviously we had this long bear flag which broke up on the news that a deal was being done with China. We're giving back some of that now, and may well give back more. We will see. I've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the daily chart, leaning further short at the moment. Looking at cotton, we got a very nice, we got an overall falling wedge from the 2022 high that broke up. We got a double bottom here, and I'm leaning towards the long side, but I am wondering, given what we've been seeing the last few weeks, whether we might need to see another retest of the low first. We will see. Looking at lumber, very nice looking bear flag here. Once we see a breakdown below bear flag support, which is in about the 490 area, then that would give us a bear flag target in the 35250 area, and we've actually got a double top here, which is already broken down with basically the same target. So I'm leaning towards that, us seeing that. Not been seeing a lot of sign of that happening so far. This is the bigger double top, which is broken down, and it's nice. We saw a bit of a rally after it broke down. We often see that. This is a bit more than I'd normally expect, but there's nothing to suggest that target won't be made, and it is very much the obvious target. All right, great. Let's have a look at crypto. Right, on Bitcoin, we're still rallying a bit off the lows. This rally is in sympathy with the one in equities, but is nowhere near as strong. We have, however, got back over the daily middle band, and this is a confirming. Well, we're successfully holding it after a back test. In terms of the smaller picture chart here, I am wondering whether this is a bear flag and whether this might break down soon. I am thinking that we might need a bit of a pullback in equities to deliver that. Looking at Solana, still rallying too on the daily chart. We have been struggling a bit more with the daily middle band, but we are more or less still holding above it. In terms of the little double bottom here that's breaking up, I'm not convinced this is going to deliver anything, and so far it hasn't been delivering anything. I think what we're forming here is a bear flag channel. It had a crack at breaking down over the weekend. Hasn't broken down yet. As and when it does, I'd be looking for a retest of this low here at 121.54, and of course we may go lower. Looking at Ethereum, still rallying too. We haven't had as much of a pullback over the weekend, holding pretty confidently over the daily middle band. This kind of looks like a flag, but it's the weakest flag of the three. And this has been the strongest over the weekend. We will see. I think these are all bear flags, and we're going to be seeing retests of these lows in the not too distant future. Question is exactly when, and that is a good question. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Everyone take care, and I'll catch you guys again on Wednesday. Cheers.